Hello and welcome back to this channel. In this video I'm going to talk about how to use some of the many amazing features of Vital to make some generative patches. What is a generative patch? Well, something like this. Well, this is partially generative and partially deterministic. What is a generative patch exactly? It's a patch, which generates a sequence, typically would say actually a generative sequence, and such sequence is not completely deterministic. There are things that happen and sometimes don't, and maybe sometimes they happen differently from some other time. And the reason to use something like this could be maybe you're lazy in making your music and you think just randomness makes it happen, or more likely, if you're just trying to make some electronic music, or maybe if you're playing it live, like typically it's done on modulars, you would, you might not really want every possible change in the sequence to be controlled by your own hands, by your own will, but you want some more movement and change to happen from time to time in the patch without having to make it happen yourself, which, might come, might be something. So I had been wanting to do this video for quite a while because I think Vital is very, very good for doing these things, and it's really amazing that a fixed architecture synth allows you to do these things, which would require you like a wall of Eurorack modules to achieve, and this morning I got up and I found out that Dash Glitch, who is quite a famous and successful YouTuber, had just done a video on that same thing. But since it hasn't covered all I want to cover in my video, I'll just keep on going anyway. If you don't know that guy, well, it doesn't need my advertisement, but I totally recommend checking out his channel, especially if you're into psytrance-like stuff, but not exclusively, because, sound design is sound design, whatever you want to do. So let's start. I'm gonna do something like having this thing be a sine, and then I'm gonna do some FM with an LFO, because I'm actually wanna keep this thing free, and I wanna use more. I wanna use other. I'm quite good with doing it like this, and I'm gonna use things differently for other purposes. So here I'm controlling the phase. Now this is nothing, which wasn't what I wanted. I wanted it to be a sine. So now I have this modulation on the phase induced by my LFO. I'll put it to the max, but I don't want this to be linear, because in this case it would be like a sawtooth. So I'm gonna go for like 3 sine and have this thing right. So this is I recommend, if you like these things, to check out my other videos about audio rate modulations in Vital, because I think that would probably make all this thing a lot more understandable. Then I'll get LFO2 to control the amount of this modulation, and so this thing will just just does this thing. But that's not what I want it to do. I'll set it to 1 bar, and then I'm gonna go inside the mod mapping here to make it different, so that on 1 bar, let's go to 16ths, for example, and then once we have it in 16ths, well, I'm gonna go and put some plucky things like this, so that I have different. And actually, I don't want this to be smooth at all. No, actually this one I don't want to be smooth. Now this is, totally deterministic, you will agree with me. Now, another thing we might want to do deterministically is using this LFO2, which is the one we have on 1 bar, to control the pitch of this oscillator. And maybe we don't want it to be on all pitches. We can achieve this in 2 ways. One, using this the pitch quantization for oscillator, but I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to do it in a different way. Here I have oscillator 1 transpose, and I'm going to do this. This is 16ths again. I'm going to go 16 by 12. I'm going to set this thing to 12, because it's in semitones, so it's going to be unipolar, 12 semitones up, and then I'm going to put some notes, because in this case these are semitones. Like here is not this thing, I need step. Here is like the second note, a minor third here. Let's go fundamental, minor third, a fourth here, a fifth here, and nothing here. I mean, nothing, it's fundamental again. Let's put a 12th, an octave here, and again, fundamental here. Let's go minor seventh. I just playing along with this, doing things I think, you know, it just harmonically makes some sense. Harmonically with what, you might ask, because I mean, thing is alone. I don't know. I'm just staying on a minor scale and seeing what happens. So just a minor scale. I might want a sixth too, right? Why don't we put a sixth here? Actually, I have put a sixth here because it's there. So I'm fine with the sixth. Let's put a fourth here. Now, one thing you might observe now is that the timbre changes, because I'm changing the pitch of oscillator 1, but I'm not changing the pitch of this LFO. So the ratio, this LFO keeps being, the pitch of this modulator keeps being in the same position as it was as the other one. So I'll need LFO2 to control the pitch of this thing again, and these two will have to go to 12. And lucky enough, I can keep this thing consistent because I go here and I do copy and paste. And this will make it. We have this sort of an arpeggiated bass and kind of Moroder-like, not really, but no, that's the direction. And for now, it is totally deterministic. And you might think this guy has been telling us he's going to do random or actually generative sequences. Why is he doing something this deterministic? Well, I'll get to it. So let me get to one bar again and have this LFO3. Right? No, I'm actually not going to do this with LFO3 for now. Now I'm going to get a random generator here. I'm going to set it to 1/16th so that maybe it will make sense later. I'll get it synced, and let me get this thing to be synced too. And then I'll have this random one modulating the phase of this LFO. What happens now? A mess, because this is set to be continuous. Let me put it to sample and hold. It will still be quite a mess. Why? Because this jumping from one, it's linear, so it's jumping to another random point in our bar, so it's not bound to jump on the beginning of a 16th. And actually, we want that to happen, and we can. Now, you can easily draw this shape yourself. I just had added it as I had saved this shape for myself because I think this thing is pretty handy. And now what happens? Every 16th, it will pick up another random point in this on this LFO phase position, but it will go on the beginning of a 16th, and so we have this thing moving in pitch randomly and having us have one time or another this modulation happening with different values. Not this one I meant, with different values, sometimes more intense, sometimes less intense. And that's, we could make it a lot more complex. We could add curves, we could make longer things, we could make them different, whatever. You can change a lot of things however you want, and this is gonna work. Because you see, I'm randomizing everything which is controlled by LFO2, which means this modulation amount and the transposition of both our FM modulator and the pitch of our carrier oscillator. Now we can do another thing, which will stop this thing from being an arpeggiated bass, which is making this random generator stereo. What happens now is that this step will be random, but it will be one different random step for a right channel and a left channel. And so we get all this messed up thing, which is, in my opinion, kind of interesting. Now, in this case, we only have one LFO, which is completely, its position is non-deterministic, but we might want some things to keep being deterministic. Like, say, for example, we wanted to add to this thing some drums. Now, for example, I'll go here and make another simple sine wave. I could just open basic shapes, but I'm more into doing things like this. It's my thing. I just kind of like it more like this. Let me get the phase to 0 and this thing. Why am I messing this thing up so much? So for 0, no, I want it to be right in a position so that it begins with a 0, but doesn't matter. Okay, let's keep it like this and we'll be happy with it. Here, right. So now here we have a sine, and what I'm going to do with it, I'm going to make something like a kick out of it. So I'm going to get LFO 3, which is not going to be modulated by something stereo. I'm going to make it to 1/2 because I'm fine with 1/2. I'm going to go LFO 3 modulating the pitch. And then what am I going to do with this LFO 3 transpose? I'm going to set it up so that it's a kick or something akin to a kick. Say I have something kick drum 2/4 pitch here. Cool. Now we might want this to be higher in volume. Maybe we want some other harmonics just to be. And we might want the same LFO also to control the volume of this. I could do it the other way around, but then let me get again this thing, and I'm gonna make it different because I don't want the volume to be modulated in the same exact way as the pitch. I'm not liking this thing too much. Why is it? Oh, right, because this modulation is low. Now it's a lot better. Now this thing, I might want the phase to be not randomized so that, you know, every hit is the same as every other hit, but it's not really working because, of course, it's not really triggering the LFO every time a note is triggered, which of course makes it nearly impossible to achieve that thing that I was trying to achieve. So now we have this thing which is modulating these things, and it's gonna be deterministic on the position where it is. Now we might want to add something akin to a snare, like, let me get this white noise, and I'm going to do it with it's going to be a terrible snare. Okay, let me just say it's going to be a terrible snare. So I'm going to get this FM sample to modulate I'm going to do some frequency modulation on our kick here, which will turn the kick on the 2 and on the 4 on something akin to a snare. Why? I'm going to get LFO 3 to do that. And again, I'm going to have to shape it in a way so that the thing I'm talking about happens. So that it's here, it's LFO 3. So we know LFO 3 is on long, it's 1/2 bar long. So this is like the 2. And maybe we're going to get here and maybe here. And nope, we want that thing volume to be low. Not a great snare, you will agree. Might actually at this point want to send this. Let's say this thing goes to filter 1 while this thing goes to filter 2, and we'll get filter 2 on, and we'll get it to be a high pass, or actually a band pass. No, I'm going to go with a high pass, and I'm going to give it some volume, and I'm going to control this volume actually with what? Again, I'm going to go in this case with LFO2 because I know it's randomized and it's going to do a bunch of things. And what is this going to be? This is going to be some hi-hats. So these hi-hats, I'm going to get this thing to 0. No, actually not to 0, but actually let me get it. Let me start from something higher, and then like here, I'm going to put some down, something like, you know, some of these some plucky things like the ones I had done with that sort of a bit. And it's also, you know, different volumes from one side or another, but we might want to do something else, like going again in the direction of making things generative and so not deterministic. We're gonna say this thing is gonna go to 0 and this thing too is gonna go to 0, but we're gonna get a random 2 to modulate both sample level, I mean both this modulation and this modulation. So these things here I'm gonna change so that this is high, but I'm making it so that it's a step, like, you know, it's like something like flat somewhere, and so it's there somewhere and it's not there somewhere. This random 2 now, it's too slow, so we're not happy with it. Well, let's send it to 16th and sync it and send it to sample and hold 2. So that you see what's happening here. You know, there's some times in which the volume of the sample and the actual FM gets triggered, and some other that it doesn't. But the point stays that in this case we have that both the kick and the snare, however you want to call it, are deterministically in the 1 and the 3 and the 2 and the 4, you know, so like they don't just happen at random on one point or another. So, you know, whenever there will never be a snare on a point which is not a 2. So we're having the thing keep its, you know, it's sort of rhythmical integrity, if I may use this term, but at the same time it isn't deterministic. This is it. Now, we can do a lot more. Really, we can do a lot more because these things allow for a lot of possibilities. Now, in this case, for example, I'm having this sort of a kick and sort of a bass, which are going to filter 1. Let me just send them to direct out. And then, for example, let's add something else completely different. So like I have here another oscillator. I'm gonna turn it into something else, or maybe modify it myself. No, I'm gonna pick up some, I'm lazy, so let me pick up some, I don't know, this Drink the Juice, which is, okay, this thing here. Now I'm gonna put it like 12 semitones up, so that it's, you know, somewhere else. And then I'm gonna get, say, an LFO, one LFO. This LFO2 is quite cool because it's already randomized and jumps from one place to another, and it's also stereo. And this I'm going to send to filter 1, but this will make more sense later. Now, another thing I can do, which I find really interesting in this case, is like giving it this some unison, which I have to do first because it will not have me access this thing before, and change this. So let's say I want this to be a minor chord. Now, this minor chord, I'm going to randomize the amount of unison as well. Like I could do it even with a stereo random generator, which I really don't know what that implies. Anyway, in this case, I might have one note or a minor chord over that note. And maybe I could want, say, LFO, let's keep it a little bit more coherent so that I'll get, this is done by LFO, yeah, I'm gonna get LFO3 to modulate the pitch of this one in a deterministic way. And so I go here and I'm saying LFO3 oscillator 3 transpose, again enter value 12, and then again make something which makes some sense. I'm fine with this being divided by 8 because it's you know, it's half a bar, so this is already 16ths. And then again I'm going to do a thing like the one I did earlier on, putting some notes. Let's get here, is this a 5th? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, this is a 5th, and this is a 4th, and this is going to be a fundamental, and there's going to be a minor 7 here, and then again fundamental. Now this is kind of a messed up thing. I might want to add some control over its volume too, like for example, again, getting be lower and then getting LFO2 to control the volume of this in a certain way, and maybe again using something I've done already, like for example, this thing here, which was not the transpose, but this was this modulation amount, which I'm gonna copy right here, and I messed it up in the meantime. So let me get back to 16th and get it so that it does what it should be doing. I mean, it's now it would be a mess, and then remove this, right click, copy. Now I go and copy this thing here. And I have it behaving in a very different way from before. And you see the point with us having that that thing moving around and having a random place in the wavetable from time to time, and a different chord, or actually a different the number of voices here is in itself quite variable. And now if we even had some table spread, it would get even more complex. Now we could add more things, because everything can be controlled in this way. So say for example I want to use a phasor filter, a negative phasor filter here, and I don't know, make it something like this, but then I'm gonna mess this up again. Let me get something like, I could use one of these two random generators. This one is also stereo, and I even don't even need in this case to control it in too much of a, let me get a third random generator. Stereo, sync this again, let me get it a little faster, and now this one, for example, I'll have it control our filter position, and then I'm get random 2, which isn't controlling anything on this thing, to control the resonance, but less, and maybe bipolarly. So what happens here is that we have that this third oscillator is going to filter 1, and maybe then it's going to the effects. And then if I add a little bit of delay and reverb, which are, they're gonna influence only our hi-hats and our, let's make it a ping pong, and it's gonna influence only our hi-hats and our, high-pitched arpeggio. Now we already happen to have something quite complex, quite articulated, that has a lot of random things happening and some deterministic things happening. It's rhythmically solid. You can make it glitchier and weird, and make things not so solid, or it all depends on you, what your idea of controlled chaos is. That's the point. Now, I suppose I told you nearly everything I wanted to say. It's not everything that can be said by far. There's a lot more. The well of possibilities is huge and endless. Hello, and this is my lovely assistant. I don't know if you've met her already. She was here on my chair right by my side until a second ago, and she might from time to time happen to decide to perform on my keyboard while I'm making videos. I make no apologies for it. Like other people's don't make cuts to their videos because they want people to see deeply through their process and their approach. I do that because I have a disturbing cat and because I'm lazy. So since I've said everything I wanted to say, and I've also introduced my cat, I'm gonna tell you that please subscribe to my channel since you've been following this long. And besides that, I'm gonna tell you there's a lot of things in the description. There's everything about Deeptanz production I'm working with. There's a link to my Gumroad where you can find patches for Vital, and soon you will find also patches for a bunch of other synths, just as soon as I bother uploading them. And I suppose, and there's going to be also some links to my music, to things I'm doing when I'm not talking to a camera. So I say, well, this is it. Enjoy and randomize your things, make your interesting, and decide what level of determinism and madness you want in your sequences, and well, fun with them. thank you very much for your attention and everything, and I hope to see you again in my future videos.